Hello and welcome to today's live stream. This is the first of my Klaviyo specific live streams that I'll be running every week from now on, every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Sydney time. Welcome if it's your first time joining anything that or consuming any of the content I've produced about Klaviyo over the last year or so, and welcome if it's your first time here and the first time you've heard about me. So if you are joining me today, whether you're, it's currently 10 a.m. in Sydney time, it's around 8 p.m. in the USA, it's really early in the morning in the UK, about 2 a.m. I think. If you are joining me, then don't be shy. Put your, just let me know where you're from in the comments and I'll give you a shout out if you would be so kind as to do that. I will be taking questions in a little bit, and I'm joining you today from Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Twitter. So hopefully we will be, my plan is we're going to cover a little bit of ground today with Klaviyo. We're going to talk a bit about what it does, and hopefully my voice will last for about 30 to 45 minutes because I managed to pick up a cold somewhere. So if there's a lot of croakiness, you'll have to forgive me. So firstly, a little bit about myself. My name's Rod Bland. I'm the founder of Rod Bland Agency. We're an agency that specializes in using Klaviyo for e-commerce. So Klaviyo is an email marketing and SMS marketing platform, and it's particularly good. Well, its main focus is with e-commerce, and we specialize in migrating people from other platforms like, say, MailChimp or SmarterMail or others that don't quite have the automation functionality that Klaviyo has, and migrating all of their data across to Klaviyo, setting them up with all the automated flows so that you have at least, our goal is always to have at least somewhere between 10 to 20% or even more of your revenue coming from automated flows once we complete a project. And where you land in that just depends on whether you are choosing to give away any sort of discounts or not. Generally that sort of puts you in the higher bracket, but you don't even have to give away any discounts to be able to obtain that sort of result. So that's what we do, and Klaviyo is one of my favorite platforms, one of my favorite tools, and it's really, if you're in the e-commerce game, if you have an e-commerce business and you're not using automation to message your customers, then you really are missing out on loads of revenue. So that's what Klaviyo does. And the purpose of today's live stream is just to talk a bit about some of my favorite features of Klaviyo and some of the most profitable flows that you can run in Klaviyo, and to answer any questions that you might have. So if you've just jumped into the live stream today, don't be shy. Drop in where you're from into the comments. Let me know where you're from, and I'll give you a shout out. We'd love to know where people are tuning in from today. And if you do have a question, then what you can do is put a Q in the chat and then add your question in, and then I'll be happy to do my best to cover that question for you while we're running this live stream today. So yeah, I can see there's quite a few people have tuned in, so don't be shy, guys. It's okay to be a lurker, but it makes it so much more enjoyable, especially for the one who's on the other end getting with my nerves being racked by running these live streams. Jump in, put your where you're from in the chat, let us know where you're from, and I'll give you a shout out. So I've got a couple of things I want to cover. Firstly is that our live stream today is sponsored by Hydrocentre, and I'm just going to run a very quick introduction to what Hydrocentre do. Coming up, it's less than a minute. Here we go. So thank you, Hydrocentre, for sponsoring today's podcast. I actually know the owner, Scott Andrew, personally, and they've been running for about 30 years. So if you have any interest in hydroponics or growing your own food at home, they're certainly the guys to get in touch with. So welcome. If you've just joined the live stream today, we're going to be talking about my favorite tool for e-commerce businesses, which is Klaviyo. What Klaviyo does essentially is handle email and SMS marketing for you. And the best thing about Klaviyo, in my view, is its automation aspect. So it allows you to automate the messaging to your customers, still keeping it very personalized, so that you can add on at least 10 to 15, 20% of revenue to your business in an automated fashion. So it's one thing to email customers on a regular basis through your newsletters. When you add in automation, it's an additional element that you don't have to be involved in on an every week basis. You set up the flows and they run by themselves in the background. So if you've just joined, let us know where you are from. I see there's a few people dropping in. Everyone's a bit shy yet. So if you have joined me, whether you're joining from Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, drop a comment. Let us know where you're from, where you're tuning in from today. I'll give you a shout out. I'm interested to know where people are tuning in from. If you have just joined me, my name's Rod. I'm the founder of Rod Blaine Agency, and we are a Klaviyo Gold partner, and we specialize in migrating people from other platforms such as MailChimp, SmarterMail, Entreport, loads of others. Probably done about 40 odd projects now over to Klaviyo, getting them set up with the flow automations, optimizing their open rates and lists so that their regular newsletters get a lot better exposure. And that's what we do. So if you've got any questions about Klaviyo, then don't be shy. Put your question in the chat. So just put a Q in the chat and then your question, and I'll pick that up in the comments and I'll speak to that as they come through. So I can see we've got a few people logged in. Everyone's a bit shy yet. Don't be shy. Drop your comment in with who you are, where you're from, and I'll give you a shout out. So I've got a couple of things I want to cover today, and probably one of the ones that people often ask me about is which is the most profitable flow that you can run in Klaviyo, and that is definitely the abandoned cart flow. So thanks to Aquaholics, who have kindly allowed me to share their Klaviyo console today. We're going to give you an actual example of how a abandoned cart or abandoned checkout flow is configured. So I'm going to drop over to that. I'll just make sure we can see the comments at the same time. So I'll need to switch screens for this. So this is the Klaviyo Flow Builder, and basically the way that flows work in Klaviyo is that they firstly are triggered by an event. In this particular case, there are two different types of flows to do with carts in Klaviyo. So one is your abandoned cart and one is abandoned checkout. So the abandoned cart side of things relies on when somebody has added a product to cart. So it's people often forget about this. So basically, if you let's say if you're a Shopify customer, so the standard flow with Klaviyo is, even though the Klaviyo documentation says it's an abandoned cart, it's actually an abandoned checkout. So it relies on being triggered by the event, which is started checkout. Now, you've also got the ability to have a trigger which is based on when a product is added to cart, because somebody can add a product to cart, say from a collection page or a product page, but they don't necessarily proceed to checkout. And if you're only running an abandoned checkout flow, you're missing out on all the people that have added products to cart but not proceeded further. So that's the trigger, and then we have flow filters associated with the trigger, and we also have trigger filters, but I mostly use flow filters. So what we're saying is that so long as somebody has started checkout 0 times since starting this flow, or they've placed an order 0 times and they've not been in the flow in the last 6 days. Now, obviously we can adjust this. You could say 30 days, you could say a week, 2 weeks, whatever. And As long as all those conditions are met, then we proceed down, and then we have a time delay here. So you can set up all sorts of time delays by minutes, hours, days. 15 minutes is a really short time delay for an abandoned cart flow, and it's something that I would recommend that you test. Some people like to test for 15, 30, 1 hour, even 2 hours. In this case, this particular client has decided that 15 minutes works the best for them. And then we've got the first email. So I'll show you that we've got an A/B split test up here, and I'll cover A/B split test a little bit later, but at the moment with the test that we're running, there's a 92% probability that one of these emails that we are running is actually the best one. Now we can also hide and show the analytics. So when we turn them on, we can see what the open rate is. This is for the last 30 days. We can see what the click rate is. We can see what percentage of people place an order, and we can see the order volume. And we can adjust these metrics here, so we can go last 30 days, last 90 days, and we can get a picture of how each step in the flow is working for us. So let's go back to 30 days. If you've just joined me today, let us know where you're from in the chat. Drop your location and your name. If you've got your company name associated with your profile, I'd be interested to hear where you're from. So this is the first message. So the flow is triggered. Now, somebody obviously has to have a Klaviyo profile first, so that means that they've either opened an email that you've already sent them from Klaviyo, or they've signed up through a pop-up through your website to be in one of your lists already. So that basically drops a cookie on their machine, like most advertising platforms use. Now let's have a look at this email, and we'll see how the email builder, the visual builder, because we've got a split test running, this looks a little bit different. So I'm just going to edit the first email, and we'll select to continue that current test, but we're not actually going to change anything. So once again, thanks to Aquaholics for allowing us to use their console today. So this is the essence of the email. So we've got an image at the top, so all images can have alt text associated with them. So generally I would recommend you always put in alt text. Now there's a lot of template tags within Klaviyo. So this one here, the address there is the organization URL, which is defined within the Klaviyo account. And then we've got some text underneath there. So this can be formatted. It can take links as well. Underneath here, we've got a product block, and this is what I call an abandoned cart block. So this is a dynamic block that is populated with what that person has added to cart. So the added to cart event, I would typically would only add one product or a certain quantity of one product into the cart. And so what we're doing is we are capturing a bunch of things in this table here. So I'll show you how this works from a preview. And you can see what it does is it populates the image, and it also populates the name, and that's all dynamic, handled by Klaviyo based on what the actual Klaviyo profile has done. And then we've got a return to cart button, so we can use the actual checkout URL, so that takes the person's back to their shopping cart with whatever they've got in there. Now we've also got a product block a bit further down here, a dynamic product block. Let's just see how they configured this one. I'll take a look at it. I'll just look at the preview. I think perhaps they might have added that in, but not actually used it. No, it's not actually being used at this stage. But you can add in other products. So just as an example, just to show you how this works. You can see that populates products there, and you can customize the color of the buttons, etc. So I'm just going to, let's see, remove that. And then we'll go back one. So that's the first message in an abandoned cart flow. If you're just joining me today, My name's Rod Bland, the founder of Rod Bland Agency. We're Klaviyo partners, and we're just talking about the most profitable flows that you can run in Klaviyo at the moment, which is abandoned cart and abandoned checkout, and basically how they hang together. If you would like to let me know where you're from and throw a comment in the live chat, I'd be happy to hear from you. So let's go back to the flow. So what we're doing is that's the first message. So it's just an initial reminder if somebody has not completed, hasn't made that next step to go to checkout or to complete their order. And what happens is these filters are reevaluated at each step. So we've got a 1 day wait, and here you can see that we've got 24 people waiting, we've had 481 delivered, and we've had 422 skipped. So why have they been skipped? Well, if we look at the analytics over here, you can see if we just, you can see the reasons why they've been skipped. So most of them have failed the flow filters for one reason or another, or they might be a suppressed email because people can obviously unsubscribe to this kind of communication on the fly, or they might be an invalid email address or a suspicious email. And just to go back to the flow filters, this is the most common reason, because they've made that next step, so they've proceeded to checkout and they've started the checkout process, or they've actually placed an order, or they've been in the flow in the last 6 days. That would be the reason why they wouldn't get this next email. Or usually, if they've already been in the flow in the last 6 days, they'll get skipped at this stage here. So we wait 1 day. If all of the flow filters are still okay, then we send the next email. So we're just sending a reminder of what was previously sent. Once again, we're running different tests here, different split tests. So we've got a subject here, which is items in your basket at alcoholics.com.au. And I'm just going to back this up. I won't bore you with the contents of the email again. I just want you to get an idea of how the flow hangs together. And then we've got another day wait. And now what we're doing is we're running another split test, but we're doing it in a different way. So rather than using the built-in split test feature, we're using a conditional split here. So that we can see the metrics on each side. So we've got one message here that's offering a 15% off discount offer, and we've got another message here which is offering 10% off. And we wanted to see, what the difference was as far as the results go. So you can see the open rate a little higher here, click rates a little higher here, and as far as those who placed the order, I think if we get some more data, so if we look back, say over 90 days, then you can see there's really not a great difference, between we're offering 15% off versus 10. The result have been fairly similar. So what does that tell us? Well, you could probably use that information to say, well, it's actually okay for us to do a lower discount offer, and we get a very similar result. So that's the way that those conditional split tests work. And then once we make that offer, and then we wait another 44 hours, and then we send a reminder, and that's it. So there's 4 emails in that flow for abandoned cart, and the abandoned checkout is very similar to that. So if you've just joined me today, my name is Rod Bland. I'm the founder of Rod Bland Agency. We're Klaviyo Master Partners, and today we're talking about how we can use Klaviyo in e-commerce to send more personalized and effective messaging to people via email, and it's also a platform for SMS. And I'm just currently talking about the most profitable flow that you can run. This is one that if you are not running, if you have an e-commerce business and you're not running an abandoned cart flow and you don't at least have 3 or 4 emails in it, then you are definitely leaving a lot of revenue behind, or a lot of revenue on the table, so to speak. So if you've just tuned in, let me know where you're from. Drop your where you're located in the comments. And if you do have a question, then just put in a Q and your question into the comments, and I'll be happy to answer those for you. So I've just looked at the abandoned cart flow. The other most profitable flow is obviously abandoned checkout. So we can actually see the revenue per recipient for each of the flows here. So if we just we'll sort this by revenue, you can see that the added to cart is the second highest one, and then Starter checkout is the highest one. Now, added to cart generally brings in a lot more revenue because there's a lot more people reach that stage, but they don't make it to checkout. So let's have a look at how the abandoned checkout one works. So as you can see, this is a different trigger. So the trigger now is started checkout. The trigger for the abandoned cart is added to cart. Let's have a look at the flow filters. So same as we had before, place order 0 times, has not been in the flow in the last 6 days, and ordered product 0 times sustained flow. That arguably you don't need that one, but sometimes if you are integrated with Neato, if the placed order event, if it ever gets missed, which rarely happens, but if it did, then you've also got the ordered product event that you're detecting as well. So see, notice that we've got a wait of 1 hour. With the added to cart, we had a wait of 15 minutes. So we're waiting for people to, we're waiting a little bit longer before we actually send this one. Generally, as you go higher up the, I would actually have this in reverse. So our client plays around with things. I would have this one to be shorter, and then I'd have the added to cart one to be longer. And then as we go sort of further up the funnel, I'd make the delay longer. That's how I would figure that. It gives people a chance to make their way down the funnel. So once again, just the important metrics are the open rate and the click rate. As long as you have a open rate that's well above, say, 30%, I think you can easily add in 3 or 4 emails into these flows, and they will still work really well. So if you've only got, say, 1 email with a reminder in your abandoned checkout flow, but your open rate is around 40, like it is here, you can easily add in additional emails. If you've got the margin available in your business to be able to offer a discount, that's obviously a good idea, and that will help close a lot more sales for you. So as you can see here, we've got the initial reminder does generate a lot of sales. The follow-up one doesn't do much, but then once we offer the discount, you can see we're closing a lot more sales there as well. And that's how that one works. Let's see. So if you've just joined me today, then say hi in the chat. Drop your name in the chat. Let us know where you're from. I'd be interested to hear where you're tuning in from. I'm talking about Klaviyo today, which is a email marketing SMS platform. If you're in the e-commerce world, you've probably heard of Klaviyo before. We're specialists, or my agency are specialists with migrating people from other platforms, from MailChimp or from SmarterMail, Entreport, taking all the data from within your e-commerce system. If you're running Neato, then we take all that data, we migrate it into Klaviyo so that it can be consumed there, and we can use that to do personalized and automated messaging to your prospects and your customers. And the aim is that we produce at least a 10 to 15 to 20% increase in your revenue from the automated flows. And we also optimize your open rates and your list. A lot of people who work with us find they have a lot of people who have explicitly signed up to their list, but they've only been emailing those people. Anyone who's actually purchased from you before can also be emailed, and we help people optimize that so that they have the best open rates possible from their existing email list. So let's, we've covered the most profitable flow. Let's see what I've got next on my list. Just a little reminder that today's live stream is sponsored by Hydrocentre. Thank you, Hydrocentre, for sponsoring today. If you have any need as far as hydroponics goes or growing food at home, especially if you're in a small space, whether it's commercial or just for yourself, they are the guys to see. I'm going to have a look at the different metrics that Klaviyo consumes, just so you can see how that works. And let's just turn that one back on as well. So if you've just tuned in, say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're from. So Klaviyo consumes a lot of metrics, which is where its real power is. So I'm going to take you through some of the different metrics that are there. So step one, when you first start with Klaviyo, is you have to have an integration. So your integration exists between Klaviyo and your e-commerce system. And then it allows us to, or it allows Klaviyo to then consume data that is generated by your e-commerce system and produce all of these different metrics. So if we sort of work our way down the funnel, the very first metric when someone lands on your website is called active on site. And we can see that it basically just shows us sort of how many people are triggering that metric. So these are all the existing Klaviyo profiles that are triggering this metric. And we can also look at the activity. The activity feed drills down into the individuals that are running. So I won't show you that for the sake of customer privacy. And we can get information about different cohorts, which is a concept that you'd be familiar with if you do anything with Google Analytics. And we've also got activity maps as well. So I'll just go back to the metrics, work our way down the flow. So when somebody lands on the site, that's the very first metric. The next thing they might do would be to actually view a product page. So let's just find that particular, how many pages have we got? Oh, let's change this so we've got 50 per page and I can see everything. All right, so that one is viewed product. So once somebody makes that little bit further step, they're actually viewing a product page. That's the metric that Klaviyo uses there. Moving further down the funnel would be added to cart. So added product to cart. You can see the number of people that trigger that metric gets lower as we move down the funnel. After added product to cart, we've got started checkout, which is going to be on the next page. That one there. So a few less people now in that stage of the funnel. And then right at the end, what do you think we've got? We've got placed order. You can see once again, it's we're starting to get down to brass tacks now. So that's how the metrics work, and those metrics determine what triggers are available to have someone enter a flow and then be part of that whole messaging process. So if you've just joined me today, welcome, and if it's your first time here, just say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're from. My name's Rod. I'm the founder of Rod Bland Agency. We're Klaviyo partners, Klaviyo Gold partners, and we help people migrate from other email systems like MailChimp, SmarterMail, Entreport, etc. over to Klaviyo and set up automations to be able to bring in an additional 10, 15, 20% of revenue. And once that is set up, you really don't have to do a whole lot more. We focus more on the automation side of things, which is where the real power of Klaviyo is. So that's some metrics that Klaviyo consumes. Let's just see what else I had on my list of things I wanted to do here today. Let's have a look at some of the segmentation side of things that Klaviyo lets us do. So if we go back to the Klaviyo console, we go to lists and segments. So if you come from any other email marketing platform, you'd be familiar with the concept of lists. So that's where lists are static. So you basically add people to a list, and they can be added through, say, a pop-up form or a subscribe form, or you import them manually. And then once they're added, that's really the contents of the list. So there is a concept of lists within Klaviyo, but you typically don't use them very much. It's the segments that are the real powerful side of things. So I'll just show you a couple of segments that we've got here just to show you how they work. Let's have a look at one reason we might use segments is to figure out those who are no longer engaged with the brand. So that allows you to keep your list very clean. So if we look at, let's just edit, actually, you know what, just edit the definition on this one. So this one is unengaged customers have received 10 emails. So we can see here they've received an email at least 10 overall time, and they've opened 0 times during the year. So if you're sending one email once a month on average, that would be over the space of a year. If they've clicked an email 0 times, We've also added an additional flag here where the Apple Privacy Open is false. So if you've watched any of the content on my YouTube channel before, you know a little bit about the Apple Privacy Open flag. Basically, anyone who's uses Apple Mail on an iOS device to read their mail, then by default, Apple will open that email for them before it even reaches their device, and that could be considered a false open. It may not necessarily be the case, but it can result in the open rates being quite inflated. So when we're looking at the unengaged customers, we're just choosing to ignore those people who have that Apple Privacy Open flag turned on, so that we're only looking at those who definitely have not opened their email. And we've also got clicked email 0 times and they're not suppressed. So that gives us an idea of how many people are currently unengaged with the brand. And then we can use that, we can then export that particular segment, and then we can re-import it as suppressed profiles. So the effect of that is it maximizes your open rates, make sure that you're only messaging people who are interested in receiving your messages and opening and reading them. And it also keeps your subscriber fees to a minimum, or your subscription fees to a minimum as well. So if you've just joined me, welcome, and feel free to drop your name and where you are from in the chat. I'd love to know where you're coming from today. And we're just talking about user customer segmentation in Klaviyo, how that actually works. So that was just one example of how we can use segmentation. I'll show you, let's have a look at some others here, and I might just create one on the fly. Yeah, let's make a new segment. So we'll make this one, it's going to be a test based on, based on category. So you might be interested in those who have purchased something. So when somebody has done or not done, and placed order is the metric. At least once over time. We're going to add a filter in for that. So you can see there's all these different ways that you can filter on placed orders. So you could base it on the sales channel, the shipping region, but let's have a look at based on categories. So we see we've got all these different categories. Let's just pick, let's say this one here. And we can pick multiple categories as well. So let's pick these two here. And generally I like to also always add in this one, which is not suppressed for email. And that gives us an idea of the numbers. And then we just click on create segment. Now, the speed at which Klaviyo creates segments when you've got a lot of data, when you've got, say, 150, 200,000 profiles, is incredible. And it's one of the real powerful things about Klaviyo. It does populate segments very, very quickly, and that's where it's really separates itself from a lot of other platforms that have similar functionality but aren't able to process the data in any decent sort of time frame. So you can see that's currently adding profiles to that segment. So we'll take a look at that in a sec. Just check to make sure. Yeah, we've got a few people. Don't be shy if you've just logged in. I'd love to know where you are from. So just drop a comment. Let us know who you are and where you're from. We're just having a look at how we create segments in Klaviyo at the moment. Let's have a look at the definition here. So basically, we've said place order at least once over all time. There's a couple of categories, and they're not suppressed for email. If we go back to the segments, you can see we've got 140 people in that particular segment. So that's how you can create a segment based on a particular category. And let's create one. Well, actually, I'll just edit the definition on this one, and we'll do something different. So let's have a look at, say, let's look at the predictive analytics, something that I don't often use. So let's have a look at predict a number of orders to. So this could be arguably some of your higher value customers. Predicted. we'll update that segment and I'll let that run. We'll see what that produces for us. There's loads of different ways that you can segment people. I'm just going to give you a couple of examples so you can see how that actually works. So if you're just joining me today, drop a comment, let us know where you're from, and I'll send you a shout out. If you've got any questions about Klaviyo that you'd like to have answered, just put a Q and then drop your question in the chat and I'll take that as I go. We're just currently we're going through how we create segments of your existing customers or users. And it's busily finding the profiles for that one at the moment using a predictive analytic. And let's go back to the definition. All right, and I think we had about 50 odd people there. So, that's one way of looking at those who are your most important customers, not based on what they've actually done, but what they're predicted to do. And Klaviyo uses a lot of different data points to be able to utilize that predictive analysis, which can be quite useful. So let's have a look at, and I've got any comments there. All right, so that's really all I wanted to cover for today. So we've covered the most profitable flow, which is your abandoned cart, your abandoned checkout flow. I've had a look at the segmentation or the metrics that Klaviyo consumes. I'll just jump back to the solo view now. And we've also had a look at the user segmentation features that Klaviyo has and how you can utilize them to create different segments so you can do more personalized messaging for your customers. That's all I wanted to cover for today. If you did tune in briefly, thanks for joining me. I'll be back next Tuesday at the same time to answer any of your Klaviyo questions, and we will cover some different features. And thank you once again to our sponsor today, which is Hydrocentre. Thanks, guys. Thank you, Scott from Hydrocentre. And that's all for today. If you are watching this on the replay, then still let me know where you came from. Just in the comment, type replay and where you tune in from. I'd be really interested to know. And feel free to join me next week. That's all for now.